You're listening to the oneofus.net podcast network. All right, so I was the guy who had not actually seen The Room before seeing this movie about the making of The Room, The Disaster Artist. No, I have now. In fact, I was lucky enough when I saw this, which was way back at South by Southwest in March, they actually, well, not only the whole cast of this movie, The Disaster Artist, was there, but the cast of The Room was there.
Oh my God.
And they brought him on stage.
I would have loved that. Two fantastic
We got it, Chris. You're cooler than we are.
No, I just was at South by Southwest. That doesn't make me any cooler. It just makes me, oh, you're right. It makes
Why did you wink when you said that, though?
Totally right.
Chris is cooler.
Completely does.
No, I actually had the best experience seeing The Room for the first time. I was living in Cleveland, Ohio. I would go to the Cleveland Cinematheque, and I was seeing some French movie, and they had this poster up for The Room, and I remember seeing something on Tim and Eric. I used to watch Tim and Eric. Don't judge me.
I love Tim and Eric. That's why I think I love this movie.
So I saw the poster for it. I'm like, holy shit, this thing's real. Yeah, we're showing it next week. It's the first time it's played in Ohio. Okay, great. So when you go to see The Room in theaters, there's all these cues, there's all these things that you shot the screen, and it's gotten a little too rowdy for my taste. So one of my top 5 theatrical experiences in my life was seeing it in Cleveland in a packed room full of fresh faces who've never seen the movie, and all the reactions were just genuine and organic. It was just amazing.
Well, I had not seen it until they played it right after The Disaster Artist at South by with the cast of both movies there as well, who came out before and after to talk about it. And it was like, was kind of cool. And I'm glad for those of you out there who have not seen The Room yet, which is being billed now as the worst movie of all time. Although I think Plan 9
it's the best worst movie.
got it
It's entertainingly bad. It's not like... No, I can't put my worst.
I mean,
I think it's the best modern worst movie.
There's a long list of entertainingly bad. For me, Troll 2 is that one where you're like, oh, I actually have fun. I'm not generally into that, oh, it's so bad I have fun laughing at it type of thing. Troll 2 I still get a kick out of for some degree or another.
Sure, yeah.
But The Room is definitely one of those, like, how did this fucking get made?
And Troll 2 is kind of the gold standard of that kind of movie until The Room came
Well,
along.
that's the thing. You watch The Room, which is just, a weird relationship drama. And it's so bad on every level. And you're like, how in the world did this get distribution and get made? I mean, it's beyond Troll 2, where at least Troll 2 is a horror movie, and any shit will get distribution in horror because people will still rent it.
Oh, Christ.
And it was a sequel, too, so you're like, okay. But, made by some Italian guy. He's like, fuck it, I don't care. Here's $10,000, make the movie. This one, you're like, who would have financed this? I'm actually kind of curious to know the story. Well, James Franco was too, and apparently, got himself involved along with Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg and a couple other producers, and decided to direct this biography of Tommy Wiseau. Well, as much as you can do a biography of Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, there's still a lot of things you don't know about.
It's so mysterious.
Like this is based on a book that was the memoir written by Greg Sestero, who played Mark in the film. And I've read the book, and not even he knows. Even with all their years of friendship, he still doesn't know where he came from.
Yeah.
The only thing they were able to uncover is he might be from Poland.
Yeah, but they still don't even know that for sure.
Exactly.
I mean, he's this bizarre personality with a strange, not sure where it's from accent, lots of money hidden away that no one has any idea where it came from, and an ego that is huge and easily bruised at the same time.
That's amazing. He is a person that belongs on Tim and Eric. In fact, he's been on Tim and Eric. He's directed Tim and Eric.
Stop talking about Tim and Eric, please. We're
only talking about the show, not the horrible movie that they did.
Which
is actually worse than The Room.
Or the horrible show.
He's done a lot of weird shit.
I was kind of a stoner in college, so...
I understand. It's no Ren and Stimpy.
We haven't even talked about the other stuff Tommy has done at this point. Me and Mike were talking about it a couple days ago, about his Hulu TV show that he had for a little bit.
Yeah.
Called The Neighbors.
Yeah, which...
And his YouTube show called The Tommy Wiseau Show.
Oh, my God.
Where he played video games. This is on YouTube, by the way, so you can easily
he
find
produced a sitcom, and I don't think it's on Hulu anymore, but I watched the first 2 episodes out of curiosity. It has a production value of really cheap porn. Every time the characters were arguing, I thought it was going to lead to some kind of angry forced anal scene or something. It was just that. And also, in-camera mic clearly was being used.
Which The Room constantly feels like it's about to go turn into a really bad porno film as well. It has
that sequence, though.
It has the level,
several of those sequences.
It has the level of acting of the worst porno film you've ever seen. But that's the whole thing.
That's
the
debatable.
Curiosity of this, James Franco not only directed this and produced it, but he also plays Tommy Wiseau, which made me, and I think everyone, a little nervous. Because you're like,
oh yeah,
Franco is not known for his nuanced, like, character-based performances. He's like, when you look at him playing this character who's such a brash, extreme personality.
And who else could better to play him than James Franco?
How are you going to play this?
James Franco's very good at playing James Franco.
Yeah, how are you going to play this for anything but absurdity?
Well, it's obvious that Tommy Wiseau is just Eastern European James Franco. Right. So that's how he did it.
And then Dave bringing his brother, Dave Franco, to play Greg Sestero, who is both the line producer and the actor, plays Mark, who is the second lead in the film. You're like, okay, this whole thing seems like a disaster in and of itself. Well, I'm pleased to tell you that not only is this thing not a disaster, it's actually one of the funniest movies I've seen this year.
Absolutely.
It's really funny.
And more than that, I feel like.
It's heartbreaking, too. Like, you feel for Tommy Wiseau's character. Like, anyone who's ever been in an uneven friendship, because that's what this movie is. It's about this uneven friendship between these two protagonists, these two people trying to be actors. It just, I don't know, it really hit me, and I just felt so bad for, because he's like, well, you don't know, what kind of guy is Tommy Wiseau? You don't know, but like, you feel bad for him. You want him. He wants to be this artist. He wants to be this.
Well, nobody is.
Yeah, like it's very clear the guy was not the nicest guy on the planet. But yet, throughout this journey, you go from kind of being intrigued by the guy to hating the guy to kind of liking him to even rooting for him and even feeling sorry for him.
Yeah, and nobody is terribly smart here. Like,
no.
Except for maybe Seth Rogen, who is the script supervisor, who's actually everybody working on the film.
Everyone
who
that's
weren't
the crew
friends
on his film
with Tommy are being extremely well paid to do this, and
Yeah.
they're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
whatever, dude.
I'll take a paycheck.
Yeah.
In fact, they have like a little team meeting in the movie, and they're like, well, if he's gonna like buy our stuff, then let's have him hire us.
Yeah.
They're like, why don't we? Like,
why don't we
if he
take
can
his
afford
money?
like this dumb decision, then he can afford some other dumb decisions.
Because his bank account is, to quote the bank teller in the movie, a bottomless pit.
Yeah, he's like. He's a baffling enigma in the movie, but it's exactly what he's like in real life.
I mean,
That's why it's so interesting.
Well, from the get-go, like
all reports, this is really what this guy is like. This is not far off at all from what actually happened.
Yeah, from the get-go, Greg is just like, well, how can you afford like having 2 apartments in California and a Mercedes and just letting me live there, basically, kind of thing. He's just like, yeah, he has an apartment in 2 completely different cities, and he's just like, I don't fucking care. And it's just like, but why though? And he's like, don't worry about it. And so you're a little uneasy by it.
Don't tell anyone about this. Don't talk about me.
Like you keep expecting like some weird.
Is he a
like
hitman?
crazy criminal thing? Like he's actually in the witness protection program or something.
He's a vampire. Is what he is.
I feel like he's the child of some Bosnian gangster or something who they would like somebody wants to kill the rest of his family. You know,
well,
but you're like I don't know, but either way, Greg is not real smart either here.
Because he's with him.
He's a 19-year-old kid, in the beginning at least. He's a 19-year-old kid who just wants to be an actor. And some crazy rich person says, why don't you just move to LA with me and don't worry about paying for anything? It's hard to say no to that sort of thing when he's so bright-eyed and baby-faced as Tommy Wiseau keeps calling him throughout the movie.
And he really is.
He just wants to be an actor so bad that he just wants to take this weird-ass opportunity, even if everyone's telling him, no, this makes no fucking sense.
His mom, his girlfriend, everybody's telling him, like, this is not a good idea.
The only time he kind of seems to have any sort of grasp on reality is after he meets Alison Brie, who he starts dating, who is like, a pleasant person, but is the first one to go, don't you see something is wrong here? Something's wrong with this
And he
guy.
just always goes, that's just Tommy, kind of thing. And you're just like, well, that's like he mentioned, it's an uneven friendship that he doesn't understand is uneven. He keeps thinking that they're both very equal in terms of what they're doing. But it's hysterical because it turns out Tommy really is giving him way more than Greg ever possibly asks for. And it's almost terrifying in that sort of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like in a movie that had been scripted that was totally fantasy, you would totally expect that Tommy would have turned out to be a serial killer.
Yeah, if this wasn't a making of a terrible movie, like, this could have gone a completely different direction.
Oh, completely. But as it is...
Like, if Greg disappeared today, we would probably be very, very curious as to if Tommy had something to do with it.
All I can think is that this original script must have, like, gone around... like the circles in Hollywood, and everyone who read it was like, "Holy fuck, I've got to be in this!" Because look at this cast list. I mean, on my side,
everyone's in it.
It's Ari Grainer, Josh Hutcherson, Jackie Weaver, Zac Efron, Hannibal Buress, Andrew Santino, Sharon Stone, Melanie Griffith, Paul Scheer, Jason Mantzoukas,
Paul Scheer's great.
Brett Gelman, Zoe Deutsch, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Jason Mitchell, Randall Park, Kate Upton, John Early, Bob Odenkirk, and lots of more cameos.
There's so many cameos in this that just sort of fly by that you don't even realize half of them.
Keegan-Michael Key, Danny McBride, Adam Scott, Kristen Bell. It's insane the amount of celebrities. It opens
with like a bunch of celebrities like, again, Kristen Bell, J.J. Abrams, Kevin Smith, Keegan-Michael Key, all talk about what an anomaly this movie is and how it's impossible that it exists.
Well, it starts off and they're all talking about like how great how amazing
this film is.
A film is, and then they're like, oh yeah, it's terrible. It's like,
it's such an interesting opening to a movie, especially when, like, because at first it's all these comedians, so at first your thought process is like, oh, they're just doing a joke. But then J.J. Abrams shows up in this little sequence. And you're just like, oh my god, what the fuck? And then it just goes, The Disaster Artist, and then it starts, and you're like, what the fuck just happened kind of thing.
And this whole thing is like one of those, like, the reason this movie is what it is. I mean, the guy's never going to be able to recreate this level of, like, what the fuck, I've got to see that thingness again, because it was the real life around it. It was all the situations in a weird sort of anti-lightning in a bottle. It's the anti-lightning equation.
One of the actions breaks down that Tommy's telling way more personal of a story than he's leading on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also.
And watching this play out as these two guys are like, oh, we're tired of just trying out for stuff and no one appreciating our talent. We should just make our own movie, which, you know, they know nothing about. And sure enough, Tommy is just like you said, he's got a bottomless pit of an account. So
there's
so
many great.
Why don't we film it in digital and film? And they're like, wait, what? Why would you do that?
Like, there's a great point where he gets introduced to the DP of the film, and he stares at Greg and he's like, what the fuck does that mean? He's like, oh, it's a director of photography. Oh yes, yeah, right, yeah, sure. We need one of those, I guess, kind of thing. And you're just like, fuck, this dude knows literally jack shit about movies.
Very little about his credentials. All he knows is that he knows how to do that job. And it's like, oh, you're hired.
Did he like movies, or did he just like Greg and then got into acting? Well, I guess he was kind of.
You couldn't tell because he shows him those James Dean films, and he's like, I've never seen them before.
Yeah, that's why I wonder. Yeah. It's like, is this someone's first like real friendship since some kind of brain accident or something?
That makes it so creepy.
That's what it feels
Something's
like.
Something's wrong with Tommy Wiseau.
Well, they reference like he says he was like in an accident and that he was home for a while. And then, I was thinking, well, maybe like he got into an accident and maybe he got like a huge settlement. And maybe that's where that money came from.
But that's the thing. It's
who hit him? Donald Trump?
The heart. I mean, the laughter in this movie is about the absurdity of this movie getting made, but the heart of it is with this guy Tommy, who is just a big child with an unlimited budget, who wants nothing more than to have a friend.
Yeah.
He really wants to do right by his friend. He just doesn't really know what that means.
He doesn't really know what anything means when he interacts with people who aren't Greg. There's so much just like, you don't understand anything really, like in about what you want to do. Like when he's in the acting class with Bob Odenkirk pretty early on before they make the movie, the guy's like, look, there's so many things that you could probably actually do, but you don't want to do any of them, kind of thing. And he's just like, well, I'm going to be great. And then he accosts a producer in the middle of a restaurant, kind of thing. And he doesn't understand why it's a bad thing. And he doesn't understand why the guy's not like biting his acting performance in the middle of a restaurant, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go to final thoughts. Mike, start us out. Oh, sorry. Mike on the right, start us off.
Yeah.
Editor Mike, start us off.
Yeah, I really love this thing. I was really looking forward to it as a longtime fan of The Room. I've gone to several of the screenings when I was in college. and I've read the book, and there's some things they leave out of the book, but there's something they touch on just enough that it works just fine. I was actually thumbing through the book the other day, and I showed Mike, there's like a section in the middle where there's the pictures, behind-the-scenes pictures from the movie, and one just says it all. It's the sound guy. Remember this? The sound guy sitting in his chair, head buried in his hands, like, what the fuck am I doing
There's
with my
a
life?
caption that literally just says the sound producer and has his name is just it gives up. Like, he doesn't
gives
fucking
up.
care.
But this is like a great film about friendship and how just what you do for your friends, and it is a modern day Ed Wood. I mean, Ed Wood is one of my all-time favorite films. This is definitely not as over the top as Ed Wood is. It is there's some times where it gets very tense, it gets very funny, and even heartbreaking at times. This is definitely one of the best films I've seen this year. If you have seen The Room, you're gonna love this thing. And if you love this, definitely seek out the book. The only complaint is this: I think that Dave Franco. I think he did fine playing Greg Sestero, but I didn't see him playing Greg Sestero. James Franco disappears into the role. There's a point where I stopped thinking, oh, I'm watching James Franco. I started seeing Tommy Wiseau. Never did I see Greg Sestero. I just saw Dave Franco doing a decent enough job playing a bright-eyed young actor who just wants to do the right thing and also make it big. Seth Rogen's great. I think Paul Scheer stood out as well. Everybody was just so great in this thing. One of the best films of the year. I would give it I think I'd say maybe about a 8.5 out of 10 really long sex scenes.
Okay, Dragon Ball Z, Michael.
So I'm gonna try powering out for about 3 episodes. I'm sorry. Mike actually, he hit up on something that I wanted to mention was that Dave Franco as Greg didn't really work for me, only because Greg himself is a very, when you see him in the movie, he's a very tall person kind of thing. So there's a sequence in the movie where he meets somebody who wants to cast him in something, and you're looking at him like, well, why would you cast Dave Franco in that? That doesn't make any fucking sense. The guy is a very short-looking guy, but then you remember that the actual Greg Sestero is actually a very tall guy and would totally look like a lumberjack kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're just like, okay, well, that's kind of weird. But then, so it was one of the few times, I would get taken out of the movie every now and then because of the fact that he's supposed to be playing Greg. But like Mike says, he plays a great, he plays what the character's supposed to be incredibly well. James Franco absolutely is amazing in this. You forget, pretty quickly that that's James Franco. You're like, oh, this is just the weird Tommy Wiseau brother kind of thing that he just disappears in it. And his accent, at first, it didn't bother me too much. And, I could see why some people might be a little weirded out by it, but that's only because that's how Tommy Wiseau talks to begin with.
It's dead on.
It's dead on, absolutely. But the thing is, the movie, it gets very tense. It's about this weird friendship that culminates into one of the weirdest movies ever made, and the weird path it brings all of these other people into. And all the people that he hires, all the people that decide to act in this movie, and Greg's actual life just sort of spirals almost out of control. Just it just feels like you don't know whose side you're on sometimes. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you're like, well, Greg, he did really do all of this for you, kind of thing. But then you realize that's kind of creepy on a certain level. And so you're just, but at the same time,
Mike's still working all this shit out right here. He's
but
this, but also this.
Because that's the thing. That's the thing about this movie that I really enjoy is that it's very much Greg and Tommy's story. More so Greg's, but also in the weird way, if this was any different, it would have been a horror movie.
Yeah.
But by the time it's over, you end up really enjoying the fact that these two guys did their dream, even if it was the weirdest possible outcome for their dream. Mm-hmm. And so they're forever remembered to the point where somebody made a movie about them. I absolutely have to say that the cinematography and everything was really good in this as well. There were some shots that probably could have been shortened here and there, but I never read the book, for instance, like Mike did.
I've heard it's great from multiple
people. It's amazing. And the thing is, there's a lot of people who still haven't seen The Room who are going to watch this movie. We sat next to a guy who, at the very end of the movie, it shows the side-by-sides of the movie and the actual movie. and I heard the guy next to me on the left go, "Oh my god, this is real," kind of thing. And I was just like, "Wait, what?" And then it dawned on me, not everyone has seen The Room, and I feel like if you're going to watch this movie, you should probably watch it right afterwards, because you'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it in so many weird ways. Also, stay after the credits, because there's an after credit sequence.
Yep.
Just throwing that out there in case anyone knows. But I would have to give it 9 out of 10 Tommy Wiseau's saying, "Oh, hi."
Oh, hi, Mike.
Well, Zach, let's do the football round. What do you think?
Okay.
Oh, by the way, how's your sex life?
This is everything what they're saying. I love this movie. Dave Franco he's great. His fake beard is off-putting at some points. James Franco is unreal. Like, it's not James Franco to me. The affectations, all of these things, he's Tommy Wiseau in this. And as much as it is Greg's point of view, to me, it's Tommy Wiseau's movie, because The Room was his movie, and it's his vision, and it's this artist's story, and it's sad and depressing when an artist doesn't have what it takes, and that's like the heartbreaking thing to me, because I really like identify, I'm like, oh, I'm this writer or whatever, but
who hurt you, Zach?
And like I'm like, but then this insecurity of, oh, but what if I'm like this Tommy Wiseau type person? Like, what if I'm shitty at this thing? And
you just have to have a bottomless pit full of money in your bank account, right? And then fine.
All of my dreams can come true. But it just, it makes you wonder, like, what was he doing before, and why didn't he do this sooner? And is it because of Greg that he decided to make a movie? Well, it seems like it is. So to me, it really is Tommy's story, and Dave or James Franco, he really directs it very well. The funny scenes, they really pop. They're shot like in a much more traditional way, and then when the drama starts, when there's like a climax of drama, the scenes get more chaotic, and the editing and the camera work is a little more shaky, and I really appreciated that. I was really in this movie. I was really with these two wannabe actors. So I'll give it an 8.5 lopsided friendships out of 10.
All right, so it's not uncommon to do the story of, like, normally with somebody who's, like, a real celebrity, if you will, as opposed to Tommy Wiseau, where the audience avatar is somebody who's not terribly big, about their definition of their character. They're more kind of generic, because you want the focus to be on this crazy person, this insane, bigger than life person. Now, Wiseau is no My Week with Marilyn Monroe or something like that, but like nonetheless, he is this bigger than life mystery person that we're here to see stuff about. We're not
so
here
you don't
to
want to
see
see Tommy Wiseau under event or on top of event at any point.
You can't do it from his POV.
Hi, Georgie.
No,
somebody else for you.
That's the thing, is if you told it from his POV, this movie wouldn't make any sense.
It'd be insane.
It has to be from Greg's
Oh,
point
there'd be
of view.
scenes missing the entire time.
And Greg is, actually, there were a lot of choices probably how to play him, and I actually think, despite the fact that, of course, Franco's performance is not even in the same league as James's performance here.
Oh, yeah.
It's not necessary to be the way it is. And I wonder if that was a very conscious decision. Look, you're a wide-eyed, not real bright, super young waif in LA who has walked into what seems like kind of a dream situation here. And we don't need to know a heck of a lot about you, really. You're here to be kind of the guy who the audience is seeing themselves through the eyes of. And I think it really works here. This movie is such a great mix between being like so funny you can barely stand it at points, and stuff that makes you kind of want to tear up and cry, like not out of sadness so much as like, God, that's just kind of fucking heartwarming in a weird sort of way, because really it is about friendship. And I think everyone, despite how weird this friendship is, are going to find things to identify with nonetheless. I thought this was one of the best films I've seen this year, and I give it 9.5 out of 10. Alley sets that look exactly like the alley it was built
That's such a great moment. I couldn't stop thinking of Ghostbusters 2 whenever they asked him where he was from that part where Venkman asks where the art guy's from. He goes, the Upper West Side. That's all I could think of the entire time. They ask him where he's from.
Someday we're going to find out what Wiseau's real story is, then it'll probably be really boring. It'll be like, oh shit, is that it? Fuck, I was hoping he was like on the run from some, like he was like a spy for some secret agency, and he got shot in the head, and then wait till the Room Part 2 where suddenly his memories come back and he realizes he's an international assassin.
I want to just walk in on Tommy Wiseau and he doesn't have his accent, and then he sees somebody's in the room and freaks out and starts doing the accent.
He makes one eye all droopy.
They're on to me.
OneOfUs.net has been your one-stop shop for all things geek for years. But there's a side to them many of you have never heard. The subscription side. Subscribe and listen to great podcasts like The Breakfast Pub, The Original Gentleman, and the Watch a Movie With Us series. Head on over to OneOfUs.net and don't forget your towel.